Hello everybody. Welcome to Number 1 Doctor channel. Today video is about surgical anatomy of the pituitary gland, which is part of our playlist called Short Medical Notes, in which we will have short videos about important topic in medicine. But please do not forget to like and share our videos and subscribe to our YouTube channel Number 1 Doctor, and join our social media accounts in the links below each video. Our aim is to share the correct medical knowledge for all for free. Share and be shared. Today we will talk about surgical anatomy of the pituitary gland. The pituitary gland is the master gland of the endocrine system, controlled by the hypothalamus. It is split into two lobes, the anterior lobe and the posterior lobe. Each lobe secretes different hormones in response to signals from the hypothalamus. However, only the anterior lobe produces its own hormones. The pituitary gland is located within a depression of the sphenoid bone, called the pituitary hypophyseal fossa or sella turcica. It is connected to the hypothalamus via the pituitary stalk infundibulum, which serves not only to connect them physically but also allowing passage of nerve fibers from the hypothalamus. Due to the pituitary gland's location, it has important and complex anatomical relations. Inferiorly, sphenoid bone and a sphenoid sinus. Superiorly, hypothalamus, pituitary stalk, optic chiasm, circle of Willis, diaphragmocele, fold of dry matter that covers the pituitary stalk. Laterally, cavernous sinus containing the internal carotids, oculomotor nerve, trochlear nerve, ophthalmic and maxillary divisions of the trigeminal nerve, and abducens nerve. Anteriorly, anterior intercavernous sinus. Posteriorly, posterior intercavernous sinus, dorsum cellae. Clinical significance: pituitary adenoma. Anterior lobe adenomas comprise about 10 of all intracranial tumors. Posterior lobe adenomas do not occur. These tumors can manifest clinically secondary to the secretion of excess hormone and compression of local structures. As these tumors grow, they can compress the optic chiasm which lies superior to the pituitary gland. This can cause visual field defects, notably bitemporal hemianopia, which if left untreated can lead to permanent visual field loss. One method of treatment involves surgery, approaching through the nose, and through the sphenoid sinus and sphenoid bone, a transvoidal approach. This can be performed with a microscope or endoscope. Posterior lobe. The posterior lobe neurohypophysis is formed from neural tissue and is an extension of the neurosecretory fibers of the paraventricular and supraoptic nuclei of the hypothalamus. The posterior pituitary does not manufacture hormones. Instead, the posterior pituitary stores and secretes the hormones produced by the hypothalamus, specifically oxytocin produced by the paraventricular nuclei and antidiuretic hormone produced by the supraoptic nuclei. In response to signals from the hypothalamus, these hormones are released into the bloodstream. Oxytocin stimulates uterine contractions and dilation of the cervix with a positive feedback loop from cervical stretching. It is also necessary for the milk ejection reflex and thought to contribute to parent-neonate bonding. Antidiuretic hormone Adh helps to control homeostasis of fluid in the body via increasing water reabsorption in the kidneys. This forms a negative feedback loop. Anterior lobe. The anterior lobe adenohypophysis is formed of glandular tissue split into three regions: pars distalis, pars intermedia, pars tuberalis. The pars distalis is found in the most anterior portion of the anterior lobe and forms much of the anterior lobe. The pars intermedia lies between the pars distalis and the posterior lobe, whilst the pars tuberalis wraps the pituitary stalk. The anterior lobe manufactures its hormones via endocrine cells. These cells are controlled via hypothalamic hormones that stimulate or inhibit release via secretion into a capillary plexus in the infundibulum. The anterior lobe's hormones are listed below, along with the hypothalamic hormones that control their release. Vasculature. The pituitary gland is supported by a rich vascular supply due to the high energy needs of the endocrine cells, with capillary beds and veins acting as the ductal system for hormones. The arterial supply of the pituitary gland originates from the internal carotids, which give out hypophyseal branches. One set of branches, including the superior hypophyseal artery, supplies a primary capillary bed in the wall of the pituitary stalk, which drains into portal vessels. These portal vessels drain and form a second capillary bed in the anterior lobe bathing the endocrine cells. This secondary capillary bed eventually drains into the cavernous sinus. The posterior lobe receives a direct supply from the inferior hypophyseal arteries, draining into the cavernous sinus. The cavernous sinus transports the hormones secreted by both the anterior and posterior pituitary away and towards the target cells. Key points. The pituitary gland is an endocrine organ with vital roles in homeostasis. It sits within the hypophyseal fossa of the sphenoid bone. The pituitary gland is split into two parts, anterior lobe and posterior lobe. The anterior lobe produces, stores, and secretes its own hormones: adrenocorticotropic hormone Adh, follicle-stimulating hormone FSH, luteinizing hormone LH, growth hormone GH, prolactin PRL, thyrotropin TSH. The anterior lobe is mediated by the hypothalamus via inhibiting and releasing hormones, which travel via the capillary bed and portal system. The posterior lobe stores and secretes hormones produced by neuron fibers from the supraoptic and paraventricular nuclei of the hypothalamus, specifically oxytocin and antidiuretic hormone. The blood supply originates from the internal carotids, giving rise to hypophyseal branches, with the arterial supply of the anterior lobe involving the superior hypophyseal artery and the posterior pituitary receiving a direct supply from the inferior hypophyseal arteries. The hormones and vasculature drain into the cavernous sinus. Thanks for watching our video and hope to see you again in next videos. Do not forget to see other videos in our channel. With my best wishes, Dr. Atif Ahmed.